Book 2, the Book of the Traveller of the Worlds, Canto 8, the World of Falsehood, the Mother of Evil, and the Sons of Darkness. So we finished Canto 7, the Descent into Night, and now we were to start Canto 8. Let me start with the last paragraph so there's a continuity. 218 towards the end, Canto 7, the Descent into Night. So this, of course, here Ashwapati goes into the deepest night of this swallowing throat and huge belly of doom. His being from its own vision disappeared, drawn towards depths that hungered for its fall. A formless void oppressed his struggling brain. A darkness grim and cold benumbed his flesh. A whispered grey suggestion chilled his heart, hailed by serpent force from its warm house, and dragged to extinction in bleak vacancy, and so on. So hope strangled perished in his empty soul. Belief in memory abolished died, and all that helps the spirit in its course. There crawled through every tense and aching nerve, leaving behind its poignant, quaking trail, a nameless and unutterable fear. As a sea nears a victim bound and still, the approach alarmed his mind forever dumb, of an implacable eternity, of pain inhuman and intolerable. This he must bear, his hope of heaven estranged. He must ever exist without extinction's peace, in a slow, suffering time and tortured space. An anguished nothingness, his endless state. A lifeless vacancy was now his breast, and in the place where once was luminous thought, only remained like a pale, motionless ghost, an incapacity for faith and hope, and the dread conviction of a vanquished soul. Immortal still, but with its Godhead lost, self lost and God in touch of happier worlds. But he is Ashwapati, but he endured, stilled the vain terror, bore the smothering coils of agony and affright. Then peace returned, and the soul's sovereign gaze. To the blank horror a calm light replied, immutable, undying, and unborn. Mighty and mute the Godhead in him woke, and faced the pain and danger of the world. He mastered the tides of nature with a look. He met with his bare spirit naked hell. End of Canto 7. Canto 8, the World of Falsehood, the Mother of Evil, and the Sons of Darkness. Then could he see the hidden heart of night, the labor of its stark unconsciousness, revealed the endless terrible inane. A spiritless blank infinity was there, a nature that denied the eternal truth. In the vain braggart freedom of its thought, hoped to abolish God and reign alone. There was no sovereign guest, no witness light. Unhelped, it would create its own bleak world. Its large blind eyes looked out on demon acts. Its deaf ears heard the untruth its dumb lips spoke. Its huge, misguided fancy took vast shapes. Its mindless sentence quivered with fierce conceits, engendering a brute principle of life. Evil and pain begot a monstrous soul. So in this canto, from that plane he enters into the hidden heart of night, and Ashwapati sees there and is revealed the endless terrible inane, and a nature that denies the eternal truth and hopes to abolish God and reign alone. So here its deaf ears, it's this nature's ears, which is denying eternal truth and hopes to abolish God and reign alone. So it's a dark nature. Its large blind eyes looked out on demon acts. Its deaf ears heard the untruth its dumb lips spoke. Its huge misguided fancy took vast shapes. Its mindless sentience quivered with fierce conceits, engendering a brute principle of life. Evil and pain begot a monstrous soul. The anarchs of the formless depths arose, great titan beings and demoniac bars, world egos racked with lust and thought and will, vast minds and lives without a spirit within, impatient architects of error's house, leaders of the cosmic ignorance and unrest, and sponsors of sorrow and mortality, embodied the dark ideas of the abyss. A shadow substance into emptiness came. Dim forms were born in the unthinking void, and eddies met and made an adverse space, in whose black folds being imagined hell. His eyes, piercing the triple-plated gloom, identified their sight with its blind stare. Accustomed to the unnatural dark, they saw unreality made real and conscious night. Now here's a very interesting word, conscious night. So this dark plane of the world of falsehood, the mother of evil and the sons of darkness, is a conscious night. It's not unconscious night, which we normally think of as night and ignorance being unconscious. So that's why it's called mother of evil, sons of darkness, world of falsehood. So it's a conscious falsehood and a conscious night that exists here, which is far, far more dangerous. And, this is the root of all, where all ignorance sense comes from. But this is a very dark and evil place where Ashwapati now has gone. Great titan beings and demoniac powers, world egos racked with lust and thought and will, vast minds and lives without a spirit within. So no spirit to guide, nothing but these terrible titan beings and demoniac powers, impatient architects of error's house. So in a sense, the being that guided Hitler was from this plane. These are the lords of falsehood that come in as guiding our, what we call as asuric beings or beings of darkness. And they are very conscious, these lords falsehood that guide. They know that they are aware what they are doing, and they know that they want to create terrible suffering, evil, and satanic kind of a life like that. So you see, asuras like Stalin and Hitler, and in our times also you know who they are, if you read current affairs and news closely. These beings that are there and on the world stage have behind them these great powers of falsehood and evil. So a shadow substance into emptiness came, dim forms were born in the unthinking void, and eddies met and made an adverse space, in whose black folds being imagined hell. His eyes piercing the triple-plated gloom, identified their sight with its blind stare. Accustomed to the unnatural dark, they saw unreality made real and conscious night. A violent, fierce, and formidable world, an ancient womb of huge, calamitous dreams, coiled like a lava in the obscurity that keeps it from the spear points of heaven's stars. So this lava obscurity keeps it from spear points of heaven's stars. No light can reach it. It was the gate of a false infinite, an eternity of disastrous absolutes, an immense negation of spiritual things. All once self-luminous in the spirit sphere, turned now into their own dark contraries, being collapsed into a pointless void that yet was a zero parent of the worlds. Inconscience swallowing up the cosmic mind, produced a universe from its lethal sleep. Bliss into black coma fallen, insensible, coiled back to itself in God's eternal joy, through a false poignant figure of grief and pain, still dolorously nailed upon a cross, fixed in the soil of a dumb, insentient world, where birth was a pang and death an agony, lest all too soon should change again to bliss. Lest all too soon should change again to bliss, thought sat, a priestess of perversity, on her black tripod of the triune snake, reading by opposite signs the eternal script, a sorceress reversing life's God frame. In darkling aisles with evil eyes for lamps and fatal voices chanting from the apse, in strange infernal dim basilicas intoning the magic of the unholy word, the omnious profound initiate performed the ritual of her mysteries. So, in darkling aisles, with evil eyes for lamps, and fatal voices chanting from the apse. What does APSE mean? Unusual word. Maybe first coined by Sri Aurobindo himself. And fatal voices chanting from the apse, in strange, infernal, dim basilicas, intoning the magic of the unholy word, the omnious, profound initiate performed the ritual of her mysteries. There, suffering was nature's daily food. So, what was nature's daily food? Suffering. Alluring to the anguished heart and flesh, and torture was the formula of delight. Pain mimicked the celestial ecstasy. There, good, a faithless gardener of God, watered with virtue and world's upas tree, and careful of the outward word and act, engrafted his hypocrite blooms on native ill. All high things served their nether opposites. Did you get the meaning of apse?
Yeah. An apse is a semicircular or polygonal recess in a building,
Oh,
usually within the arched roof that sticks out from the one end.
okay.
Apses are often found in churches, cathedrals, and
Ah,
basilicas.
The basilicas and
basilicas.
apse are the same.
Correct. Okay. So that's a architectural term. So, there good a faithless gardener of God, watered with virtue the world's upas tree. What is the upas tree? The world's upas tree, the banyan tree, I think, upside down. Is that what it is? You know, the actual banyan tree doesn't grow from the soil, it grows from, it's inverted. Oh, you have, this is the Upanishads and the Vedas. Everything actually here has its prototype up there, and the banyan tree, the roots are in heaven and the leaves are in ground, so it's upside down. Okay,
So
so
the baobab trees, the ones which are actually called upside down trees of Madagascar, they were supposed to be attached to India because India was
yes,
there
yes,
at one time. So they said that those baobab trees have some trees in India as well.
as well, yeah. Oh, have you ever seen those?
They're down south.
Down south. There good a faithless gardener of God, watered with virtue the world's upas tree, and careful of the outward word and act, engrafted his hypocrite blooms on native ill. All high things served their nether opposite. The forms of God sustained a demon cult. Heaven's face became a mask and snare of hell. There in the heart of vain phenomenon, in an enormous action's writhen core, he saw a shape illimitable and vague, sitting on death who swallows all things born. A chill fixed face with dire and motionless eyes, her dreadful trident in her shadowy hand. Outstretched, she pierced all creatures with one fate. So, yeah, this is, a very important description of the world of falsehood and the mother of evil and the sons of darkness and the whole description of the origin of evil, pain, darkness, suffering, death. And I think this is why it's so difficult. It's not just this world that we are dealing with. There are worlds and worlds within and above, and these are the ones that impact our world. And unless we are able to, and they are also within us because their consciousness has a place, it forms within the human consciousness, as it does in the cosmic consciousness and the world consciousness. So that's why, something as simple like the mother says, if you want to get rid of anything, first get rid of it in yourself. Or if you want to become something, first become it in yourself. Be the change you want to have. So somebody said, how do we, get peace in the world? How do you get peace in the world? By walking around with placard and telling everybody to be peaceful? Will anybody listen? But one peaceful human being himself that doesn't have a shred of violence in his own consciousness, in his own thoughts. See how violent we are in our own thoughts when we get angry or when we have, any kind of thought. So feelings, how violent we are in our feelings. So it's so difficult to get rid of violence in our own being. So how are we going to establish world peace? So that's why the mother's very simple words. First, establish total peace in yourself, and then you'll be able to do something outside in the world. Has its roots in this chapter, in this canto, because what she's talking about, these worlds of darkness, which impact human nature, impact human consciousness, impact the world consciousness. And we are all one in one sense. So a victory established in oneself is therefore a victory potentially that could be established in the world. And more, if one were able to create the conditions of living that could attract to them beauty, good, and kindness and light, those conditions then could pervade in one's own environment and surroundings. And if that were multiplied in the world. But it's not as simple as we think that, that person is evil. Evil is an entity by itself. It has its own origin, it has its own identity and its own power and force. And it will keep changing the bodies. It will use one person, that person is killed or in jail or whatever, it will find somebody else. So these are powers. These are as powerful powers as they are, powers of the Godhead and powers of the light. So the powers of darkness are as much there as the powers of light in this terrible clash. And that's why Ashwapati has to travel and explores these worlds if he wants to find a solution to the world's suffering and evil.
Upas tree is a poisonous tree.
Poisonous tree? The world's upas tree is a poisonous tree which what? What is the origin?
I think he's trying to say how
The world's...
talking about darkness, and he says engrafted with hypocrite blooms and they take ill.
Yeah. So upas means what? Poison.
It's that is a kind of tree which is poisonous tree.
Okay, and where is it?
He's talking that
Yeah, this we understand, but
as opposed to banyan tree, or
which is the real
tree
tree?
of poison.
No, banyan is a tree of life. It's the tree of the
This
light,
is opposed
the opposite of it. Yeah. But I wonder where it is.
I was saying
It's there isn't
he was
unbelievable. But there is a upas tree. He's picked up something from mythology, Indian
Upas
mythology.
tree, Paris toxicana, is an evergreen arbor that grows in 30 meters tall, huge. Also found in tropical regions around the world, including Australia, Indonesia, Africa. It contains a cardiac glycosides
The world's upas tree. The world's
that
upas tree.
increases the heart contraction.
World's upas tree. So he sees the whole world as a poisonous tree in this plane. You see, this is the world's, yeah.
In the plane of
And in the plane of heaven, in the plane of Satchidananda, or in the next, when you see that it'll be the opposite, it'll be the banyan tree, the inverted banyan. And there's a word for it again, it's called something, which is a tree that comes down from heaven and then it's mimicked here in the tree that is, one on earth. When nothing was, save matter without soul. So there was nothing but matter without soul. And a spiritless hollow was the heart of time. Then life first touched the insensible abyss. So I was reading somewhere that actually falsehood and ignorance and darkness and, this distortion, Mother was saying in one of her conversations and commentaries on Savitri, came when life entered matter. Because when there was just the stone and insensible matter, in its most basic form, without life, there was no distortion, there was no falsehood, because it was pure matter. But when the agency of life came in, which is what animates matter with air. Now, what is the first agencies of life? Air and water. Water and air. Then fire, of course, because fire needs air for it to burn. So this is all, she was a beautiful conversation that she was having with someone about how falsehood entered the earth atmosphere. It came with the introduction of life. Life brought it in. So here, when nothing was save matter without soul. So matter also didn't have a soul, but it had no falsehood. It had no evil. It had no distortion. And a spiritless hollow was the heart of time. Then life first touched the insensible abyss, awaking the stark void to hope and grief. Her pallid beam smote the unfathomed night in which God hid himself from his own view. So her pallid beam is life's pallid beam, smote the unfathomed night in which God hid himself from his own view. In all things she sought their slumbering mystic truth, the unspoken word that inspires unconscious forms. She groped in his deeps for an invisible law, fumbled in the dim subconscient for his mind, and strove to find a way for spirit to be. But from the night another answer came. A seed was in that nether matrix cast, a dumb, unprobed husk of perverted truth. So while life entered into matter and hoped to find the invisible law of the divine in matter, what happened instead was, but from the night another answer came. A seed was in that nether matrix cast, a dumb, unprobed husk of perverted truth, a cell of an insentient infinite. A monstrous birth prepared its cosmic form. In nature's titan embryo, ignorance. So a monstrous birth prepared its cosmic form in nature's titan embryo, ignorance. So what is the embryo? Ignorance. Then in a fatal and stupendous hour, something that sprang from the stark, inconscious sleep, unwillingly begotten by the mute void, lifted its ominous head against the stars, overshadowing earth with its huge body of doom. It chilled the heavens with the menace of a face. A nameless power, a shadowy will arose, immense and alien to our universe. So when life entered into matter, the following happened as we are reading. In everything in which her pallid beam smote the unfathomed night of matter, and then instead of what she was looking for, a monstrous birth, some kind of another answer came to what she was expecting. In nature's titan embryo, ignorance, the birth of ignorance. Then in a fatal and stupendous hour, something that sprang from the stark inconscious sleep, unwillingly begotten by the mute void, lifted its ominous head against the stars, overshadowing earth with its huge body of doom, it chilled the heavens with the menace of a face. A nameless power, a shadowy will arose, immense and alien to our universe. In the inconceivable purpose none can gauge, a vast non-being robed itself with shape, the boundless nascience of the unconscious depths, covered eternity with nothingness. A seeking mind replaced the seeing soul. So, a seeking mind replaced the seeing soul. Life grew into a huge and hungry death. Mark these words. Life grew into a huge and hungry death. There was no death without life. There was no reason for death to be. So it is when life entered into matter that death came into being. And it is this non-being that robed itself into a shape. It's the presence of death in matter. So a nameless power, a shadowy will arose, immense and alien to our universe. So it was not there in the universe before. In the inconceivable purpose none can gauge, a vast non-being robed itself with a shape. The boundless nascience of the unconscious depths covered eternity with nothingness. A seeking mind replaced the seeing soul. So mind is also a child of ignorance, therefore is an instrument of death. Life has created mind from this. The seeking mind replaced the seeing soul. So the mind itself is an instrument that came into being through the agency of life, is allied with death. Now try and understand what Sri Aurobindo is saying through this. It's a whole, my God, somebody could write 10 books of understanding. If we understand this, we will understand the key to life, the key to a new life. Why Sri Aurobindo could say that there is a higher presence when the supramental consciousness comes down. Life and mind will be replaced by a new consciousness that can overturn the agency and supremacy of death. And the moment death disappears, what do you have? Immortality. And when you have immortality, there is no need for the body to rejuvenate itself through the agency of death, because there is no decay. Why is there no decay? Because there is no ignorance. What created the ignorance? Life. You understand? It's a very, very, profound knowledge that is being given through these pages. So, in the inconceivable purpose none can gauge, a vast non-being robed itself with shape. The boundless nascience of the unconscious depths covered eternity with nothingness. A seeking mind, and mind, mind you, is with a capital M. There's a difference between our mind and the seeking mind which is being referred to here. This is the origin of the plane of mind from which our human mind and the universal mind and so on comes from. A seeking mind replaced the seeing soul. Both are with capitals. Soul is with a S, with a capital S, and mind is with a capital M. So it's not what we know as mind and what we know as soul. It is the plane, yeah. It's the highest plane, it's the origination of these two, where they come from. A seeking mind replaced the seeing soul. Life grew into a huge and hungry death. Life grew into a huge and hungry death. The spirit's bliss was changed. What was the spirit's bliss changed to? Cosmic pain. Here comes the origination of suffering, pain, evil, and falsehood. So, life grew into a huge and hungry death. The spirit's bliss was changed to cosmic pain. Cosmic pain. You know what cosmic pain means? What does the cosmos consist of? Yeah, the earth is the cosmos. So the earthly pain, the whole cosmic pain. The spirit's bliss changed to cosmic pain, assuring God's self-cowled neutrality, a mighty opposition, conquered space, a sovereign ruling falsehood, death, and grief. So these three are handmaids. They come together. Falsehood, death, and grief. All three come are all, in a sense, allied forces. The spirit's bliss was changed to cosmic pain, assuring God's self-cowled neutrality, a mighty opposition, conquered space. A sovereign ruling falsehood, death, and grief, it pressed its fierce hegemony on the earth, disharmonizing the original style of the architecture of her fate's design. It falsified the primal cosmic will, and bound to struggle and dread vicissitudes, the long, slow process of the patient power. Implanting error in the stuff of things, it made an ignorance of the all-wise law. It baffled the sure touch of life's hid sense, kept dumb the intuitive guide in matter's sleep. So, baffled the sure touch of life's hid sense, kept dumb the intuitive guide in matter's sleep, deformed the insect's instinct and the brute's. So till then, you see, when you study anthropology, history, mythology, whatever you want to call it, even in the ages, the yugas and so on, there you say that before the advent of mind, there was a certain purity in the instinctual life that was very pure in its instinct and did not have the aberrations and the distortions and the falsehood that mind brought in. So, in a sense, it disharmonized the original style of the architecture of her fate's design. It falsified the primal cosmic will, and bound to struggle and dread vicissitudes, this long, slow process of the patient power. Implanting error in the stuff of things, mind implanted error. Pure instinct doesn't have error. You see how animal even today, pure instinct is seen in wild animals even today. So, implanting error in the stuff of things, it made an ignorance of the all-wise law. It baffled the sure touch of life's hid sense, kept dumb the intuitive guide in matter's sleep, deformed the insect's instinct and the brute's. So, it deformed the insect's instinct and the brute's. So, this kind of thing is the agency of life, and therefore the moment life entered into matter, it brought in this kind of a distortion through the mind replacing the seeing soul, deformed the insect's instinct and the brute's, disfigured man's thought-born humanity. A shadow fell across the simple ray. Obscured was the truth light in the cavern heart that burns unwitnessed in the altar crypt behind the still Velaman's secrecy. So a shadow fell across the simple ray. What is the simple ray with a capital R? Keeps talking about the awakening ray throughout Savitri. So a shadow fell across the simple ray. Always light is seen as the symbol of truth and of knowledge and so on. So this shadow of error, this shadow of ignorance, fell across this simple ray of light, which was what originally earth had without the agency of mind. So a shadow fell across the simple ray, obscured was the truth light in the cavern heart that burns unwitnessed in the altar crypt behind the still velaman's secrecy, companioning the Godhead of the shrine. What is the meaning of velaman? Velaman, V-A-L-A-M-E-N. Come on, I know them. Behind the still velaman's secrecy, companioning the Godhead of the shrine. Thus was the dire antagonist energy born. The dire antagonist energy is a reference to death. Thus was death born. So still velamans, what does it mean here in this context? Outer layer of empty self. So still velamans, outer layer of our nature, outer nature, which is its... So behind the outer nature's roots and its mind and its body and its whatever, there lies within in the hidden crypt the energy and the light, the original truth light in the cavern heart. So, and that was been obscured by this shadow that fell upon the simple ray, that burns unwitnessed in the altar crypt behind the still velaman's secrecy, companioning the Godhead of the shrine. Thus was the dire antagonist energy born, who mimes the eternal mother's mighty shape. So this dire antagonist energy was born. Thus was it born. And what is it? It mimics the eternal mother's mighty shape. So this dire energy has kind of a huge shape. It almost like is a shadow or a travesty or a, what is it called? When you say mirror, image of, but in a darker, obscured one, of the mother's huge shape. So death is also made as powerful as the universal mother. So, thus was the dire antagonist energy born, who mimes the eternal mother's mighty shape and mocks her luminous infinity with a grey, distorted silhouette in the night. So, except there is a grey, distorted silhouette in the night that mocks her luminous infinity and mimes the mother's mighty eternal shape. So you can see the shape of death, huge and sort of all-pervasive in the night, with a grey, distorted silhouette in the night, arresting the passion of the climbing soul. And what is its special use? And you can see it in ourselves, all of us. Arresting the passion of the climbing soul. It doesn't allow the soul to grow. It stops the growth of the soul. Arresting the passion of the climbing soul, she forced on life a slow and faltering pace. Her hands deflecting and retarding weight is laid on the mystic evolution's curve. So her hands are dark, the dark mother, the mother of evil. Now you go back to the chapter heading. The world of falsehood, the mother of evil, and the sons of darkness. So here is the description of the mother of evil, which is exactly the opposite in a terrible distorted image of the mother, the divine mother. And what is her purpose? That this mother of evil has been born through the touching of life in matter that has created death. So, this mother of evil with a grey distorted silhouette in the night, arresting the passion of the climbing soul. So the mother of evil is something that is very strong and very pervasive, especially in this evolutionary earth, and therefore in us, therefore in all of humanity. So you will see that every time we want to go upwards in our movement towards light, towards truth, towards progress, towards the growth of the soul, this mother of evil will put a restraining weight on us and somehow find a way to slow our growth. This is the evolutionary problem, yes. So, and why it's there also will be discussed later. Arresting the passion of the climbing soul, she forced on life. Who is this she? The mother of evil. Forced on life a slow and faltering pace. her hands deflecting and retarding weight is laid on the mystic evolution's curve. The mystic evolution's curve. So this is something that's happening on a cosmic level, a universal level. The tortuous line of her deceiving mind, the gods see not, and man is impotent, oppressing the God spark within the soul. She forces back to the beast the human fall. Wonderful lines. She forces back to the beast the human fall. Yet in her formidable instinctive mind, she feels the one with a capital O, one grow in the heart of time, and sees the immortal shine through the human mold. Yet she sees it, and that is why she tries to stop it. If she didn't see it, there would be no need for her to try and retard its movement, because she is constantly aware of this one within the heart of time and sees the immortal shine through the human mold, alarmed for her rule. And that is why she gets alarmed, because then if the immortal becomes more stronger and stronger, her rule and power become diminished. So, and sees the immortal shine through the human mold, alarmed for her rule and full of fear and rage. Full of fear and rage, she prowls around each light that gleams through the dark, casting its ray from the spirit's lonely tent. So anytime she sees light, she gets alerted to try and stop that light from increasing. She prowls around the night looking for light. Can you imagine how the movement of these powers are? So she prowls around each light that gleams through the dark, casting its ray from the spirit's lonely tent, hoping to enter with fierce, stealthy tread, and in the cradle slay the divine child. Can you imagine? Just imagine the imagery. And in the cradle slay the divine child. Almost like, remember what Krishna Kans did? Looks for that light. Well, this is happening on a universal level in humanity, in the evolution of the earth. So these, the mythology, these are incarnations of light, Sri Krishna, because he was bringing in such a powerful incarnation of a divine power that, the agency of Kans as the father of evil was used to try and destroy it at its birth. But it's being done all the time here.
Mother saw Sri Krishna in Sri Aurobindo.
Yes. No, in 1926, on the 24th of November, it was Sri Krishna who then entered into the physical body of Sri Aurobindo. But that is when he got his siddhi. So, hoping to enter with fierce, stealthy tread, and in the cradle slay the divine child. Incalculable are her strength and ruse. Her touch is a fascination and a death. She kills her victim with his own delight. So that is the way she does it. She kills her victim with his own delight. Even good she makes a hook to drag to hell. For her, the world runs to its agony. Often the pilgrim on the eternal's road, ill-lit from clouds by the pale moon of mind, or in devious byways wandering alone, or lost in deserts where no path is seen, falls overpowered by her lion leap, a conquered captive under her dreadful paws. So even the pilgrim, the seekers of the spiritual path, fall captive to her. And that is why you see the downfall of so many aspirants and how they get off the path. Oh, how they get into other dark ways. They start with an aspiration and then fall off the path. Some of our so-called gurus who we call pseudo gurus, and I won't take their name, you know, all of them, have the same problem. They had started with an original deep aspiration towards the light, but somehow fall off the path because this waiting for those pilgrims and catches hold of them. She kills her victim with his own delight, the ego, the perversions of power and pleasure. You've seen all those great movements around the world that have got deformed because of this. Her touch is a fascination and a death. She kills her victim with his own delight. Even good she makes a hook to drag to hell. For her the world runs to its agony. Often the pilgrim on the Eternal's road, ill-lit from clouds by the pale moon of mind, or in devious byways wandering alone, or lost in deserts where no path is seen, falls overpowered by her lion leap, a conquered captive under her dreadful paws, intoxicated by a burning breath, an amorous groan of a destroying mouth, once a companion of the sacred fire, the mortal perishes to God and light. An adversary governs heart and brain, a nature hostile to the mother force. The self of the life yields up its instruments to titan and demoniac agencies that aggrandize earth nature and disframe. A cowled fifth columnist is now thought's guide. His subtle defeatist murmur slays the faith, and lodged in the breast, or whispering from outside, a lying inspiration, fell and dark, new order substitutes for the divine. A silence falls upon the spirit's heights. From the veiled sanctuary the god retires. Empty and cold is the chamber of the bride. The golden nimbus now is seen no more. No longer burns the white spiritual ray, and hushed forever is the secret voice. Then, by the angel of the vigil tower, a name is struck from the recording book. A flame that sang in heaven sinks quenched and mute. In ruin ends the epic of a soul. In ruin ends the epic of a soul. This is the tragedy of the inner death. This is the tragedy of the inner death, when you lose and have completely lost your soul. When forfeited is the divine element, and only mind and body live to die. This is the tragedy of the inner death. So, when the divine element is forfeited and only the mind and body live to die. For terrible agencies the spirit allows, and there are subtle and enormous powers that shield themselves with the covering ignorance. Offspring of the gulfs, agents of the shadowy force, haters of light, intolerant of peace, aping to the thought, the shining friend and guide, opposing in the heart the eternal will, they veil the occult, uplifting harmonist. For terrible agencies the spirit allows, and these subtle and enormous powers cover that shield themselves with the covering ignorance, haters of light, intolerant of peace, aping to the thought, the shining friend and guide, opposing to the heart the eternal will, they veil the occult, uplifting harmonist. His wisdom's oracles are made our bonds. The doors of God they have locked with keys of creed, and shut out by the law, his tireless grace. Along all nature's lines they have set their posts, and intercept the caravans of light. So these terrible agencies that shield and cover themselves with ignorance, haters of light, opposed in the heart, in our own hearts, in the heart of humanity, the eternal will, the will of the divine. They veil the occult, uplifting harmonist, and shut the doors of God with keys of creed is religion, and shut out by the law, his tireless grace. Along all nature's lines they have set their posts and intercept the caravans of light. So creed is when you make something into a dogma, so that part of religion. The doors of God they have locked with keys of creed and shut out by the law his tireless grace. Along all nature's lines they have set their posts and intercept the caravans of light. Wherever the gods act, they intervene. A yoke is laid upon the world's dim heart. Masked are its beats from the supernal bliss, and the closed peripheries of brilliant mind block the fine entries of celestial fire. Always the dark adventurers seem to win. So always these dark forces, they seem to win in every race and every circumstance. However, nature they fill with their evils institutes, turn into defeats the victories of truths, proclaim as falsehoods the eternal laws. So these dark adventurers seem to win, and what do? They fill nature with evil's institutes, turn into defeats the victories of truths, proclaim as falsehoods the eternal laws, and load the dice of doom with wizard lies. And load the dice of doom with wizard lies. The world's shrines they have occupied, usurped its thrones. In scorn of the dwindling chances of the gods, they claim creation as their conquered fief, and crowned themselves the iron lords of time. Adepts of the illusion and the mask, the artificers of nature's fall and pain, have built their altars of triumphant night in the clay temple of terrestrial life, in the vacant precincts of the sacred fire, in front of the reredos, in the mystic rite, facing the dim velamen none can pierce, intones his solemn hymn, the metered priest, invoking their dreadful presence in his breast, attributing to them the awful name. He chants the syllables of the magic text and summons the unseen communion's act, while twixt the incense and the muttered prayer, all the fierce bale with which the world is racked is mixed in the foaming chalice of man's heart and poured to them like sacramental wine. Assuming names divine, they guide and rule. Opponents of the highest, they have come out of their world of soulless thought and power to serve by enmity the cosmic scheme. So they too serve the cosmic scheme. But they serve the cosmic scheme by enmity, by opposing the divine, by being the retarders of human evolution, and pour to them like sacramental wine. Assuming names divine, they guide and rule. So they also have names divine. So one has to have an inner discernment to see what is true and what is false, what is light and what is dark, what is ignorance and what is knowledge. So out of their world of soulless thought and power, to serve by enmity the cosmic scheme, night is their refuge and strategic base. So what is their refuge? Night. Against the sword of flame, the luminous eye, bastion they live in massive forts of gloom, calm and secure in sunless privacy. So the sons of darkness, you see, the important thing is that they have to be away from the light. Night is their refuge and strategic base. And against the sword of flame, the luminous eye, bastioned they live in massive forts of gloom, calm and secure in sunless privacy. No wandering ray of heaven can enter there. Armored, protected by their lethal masks, as in a studio of creative death. So, this is an interesting phrase that Sri Aurobindo uses here. Armored, protected by their lethal masks, as in a studio of creative death, the giant sons of darkness sit and plan the drama of the earth, their tragic stage. So they sit in their creative studio of death, and these giant sons of darkness plan the drama of the earth, their tragic stage. All who would raise the fallen world must come under the dangerous arches of their power. So anyone who tries to raise the fallen world, who tries to uplift consciousness, their own or others, must come under the dangerous arches of their power. For even the radiant children of the gods, to darken their privilege is an dreadful right. None can reach heaven who has not passed through hell. So this is a very famous line in Savitri. None can reach heaven who has not passed through hell. So one has to pass through these guardians of darkness, these forces of ignorance, and these very conscious dark powers that veil the divine. And so these are the sons of darkness that is referred to in the chapter. This too the traveller of the worlds must dare. A warrior in the dateless dual strife, he entered into dumb despairing night, challenging the darkness with his luminous soul. So anybody who wishes to travel in the worlds of consciousness, raise their own, and also to grow in evolution and grow in consciousness, must dare this, must go through this plane of consciousness, must be subject to its power and be a warrior in the dateless dual strife. This he entered into dumb despairing night, challenging the darkness with his luminous soul. Here, of course, it's also a reference to Ashwapati, who enters into this world, challenging the darkness with his luminous soul, alarming with his steps the threshold gloom. So as Ashwapati walks in, his steps, because his soul is so luminous, alarming with his steps the threshold gloom, he came into a fierce and dolorous realm, peopled by souls who never had tasted bliss, ignorant like men born blind, who know not light. So in this dolorous realm, there were all the souls that had never tasted bliss and were like blind men who had never seen light, peopled by souls who never had tasted bliss, ignorant like men born blind who knew not light. So again, it gives you a very clear idea that, we look at where does the soul go after it leaves the body. These are the questions we always ask, that what happens after death? And there is no fixed answer for it, because it depends on what in our Hindu philosophy we call as karma or whatever it may be. But there are souls stationed in every plane of consciousness. And that's why the mother always said that, those who had her protection, she would take them out of these intermediate planes and take them to their soul, their resting place. Now, what does she mean? Because even when the soul travels out of the body and it's on its way, there are all these planes and worlds of consciousness it has to traverse through to go to its ultimate resting place. And that is why we always ask for protection for those who are about to leave their body and about to die. Why we ask for it is because if the divine's grace and protection is there, the soul does not get stuck into any of these realms. Well, in this realm also, these souls are there. And each soul, obviously, there are different souls, there are different hierarchies of souls, there are different worlds. It's a very complex thing. It's not so simple or linear to understand. And why they're there is also something that, you can't understand by the mind alone, because we ourselves the mind is subject to so much of ignorance. But there you get these glimpses in Savitri of these worlds that are not visible to the outer eye, but one can sense from the inner being that there are these worlds that are present. So this is the world that now Ashwapati enters into the next realm of this world of falsehood. So even in this world of falsehood that we've been reading, as you notice, there are different kingdoms of falsehood or realms of falsehood. And there too there's a hierarchy from the, which goes from less to more dense to more falsehood to more darkness. So, ignorant like men born blind, who knew not light, they could equate worst ill with highest good. Virtue was to their eyes a face of sin, and evil and misery were their natural state. The dire administration's penal code, making of grief and pain the common law, decreeing universal joylessness, had changed life into a stoic sacrament and torture into a daily festival. An act was passed to chastise happiness. Laughter and pleasure were banned as deadly sins. So this is the nature of this realm that Ashwapati now has travelled into. Laughter and pleasure were banned as deadly sins. A questionless mind was ranked as wise content. So when you had a mind that was blank and did not ask any questions, you were considered wise. A dull heart's silent apathy as peace. Sleep was not there. Torpor was the sole rest. So what is the difference between sleep and torpor? Unconscious?
Unconscious state.
It's more of lethargy.
Yeah, torpor. So, sleep was not there, torpor was the sole rest. Death came, but neither respite gave nor end. Always the soul lived on and suffered more. Ever he deeper... Sorry?
So when it says death came, so it is our being only, which is, if our consciousness is living in this plane, the death comes to, because the death doesn't come to other beings living in. So it is, say I'm living in this plane, my consciousness. Death comes to me, my body, but the soul lives on in this plane. Is that what it means?
No. Here in this, in this plane, there are souls who are constantly living in that plane. They don't have a body. Those souls, that visits that realm, the souls continue to live. We can't destroy those souls. Even death can't touch them. They're beyond the souls, so this is the kind of, So, this is a terrible, the worst. This is the last part of this terrible plane. And that's why it's a very, very deep sons of darkness. This is where the realms, or even death can't touch them. So don't forget who death is. Now, laughter and pleasure were banned as deadly sins. A questionless mind was ranked as wise content. A dull heart's silent apathy as peace. Sleep was not there. Torpor was the sole rest. Death came, but neither respite gave nor end. Always the soul lived on and suffered more. Ever he deeper probed that kingdom of pain. Now, ever he deeper probed is Ashwapati. Ever Ashwapati deeper probed that kingdom of pain. Around him grew the terror of a world of agony, followed by worse agony. Now, souls do sometimes, even souls that are going towards their resting place, can get trapped in these worlds for a time. Some pass, some don't. Depends on the light in their own consciousness, the light and the luminosity of their soul. But there are souls that are so deeply sunk into this world. They are the representatives of the sons of darkness, in the sense they have chosen to go to this path of darkness and they're living there. Now these souls are possibly, it's not that they have not taken human bodies. They may have it in some part of their, but they are now stationed there for whatever reason. Now, we don't want to make it into a sin and virtue thing, but you have to understand that and see why they're there. But this is a world, definitely, and Ashwapati is visiting it. Ashwapati means Sri Aurobindo has visited it. And he's describing this world. So that's why if you notice in all Mother's writings, everywhere in the agenda, every conversation she has with the sadhak, she only says one thing, that I will protect you and I will take your soul to its resting
I
place.
was reading a book on death, Mother's Conversations, I think towards the later years of it. And there she talks about that the work she's doing, one of the work she's doing is creating a passage of light so that when the soul comes out of the body, if it is attuned to the mother, it naturally is attracted to that passage. And
So they used to escort the soul. I mean, I know because so many people have written about it, and they've said that they used to escort the souls of sadhaks and people who had turned to the light. We will take you to your rest. So that what happens is, then you don't get stuck or you don't go into pain. Now this is the whole karmic philosophy. If you look at Hindu philosophy, it is based on this, that until you shed away, so we always ask, where is there retribution? Where is there justice for the man who is doing these heinous crimes on earth? Where is the justice? That keeps going. So I don't think, these are things that happen to those souls who have completely fallen so darkly and so deeply that they are in these suffering, these realms of pain. That's how far they are there. And whether they eventually come out or not, I don't know. These are things that we can't say or know. But certainly these realms are there, and it's quite interesting that even death has no power over them. He can't get them out either. So that's where death has no. So death here would have been a great savior, at least get rid of. But even death comes and goes back. Okay. So always the soul lived on and suffered more. Ever he deeper probed that kingdom of pain. Around him grew the terror of a world of agony, followed by worse agony. And in the terror, a great wicked joy, glad of one's own and others' calamity. Now there are those who that's why they say be careful how you die. Their thought and life were a long punishment, the breath a burden, and all hope a scourge, the body a field of torment, a masked unease. Now it's interesting, he talks about the body here also, in this realm. So glad of one's own and others' calamity, their thought and life were a long punishment, the breath a burden, and all hope a scourge, the body a field of torment, a masked unease. Obviously, repose, he's not talking about the physical body. Don't forget, there are layers of the body. There are subtler bodies also. So, the body a field of torment, and if you don't have the physical sheath and you're moving around in your subtle body, you're much more subject to danger and torture and pain. So the breath a burden and all hope a scourge, the body a field of torment, a masked unease. Repose was awaiting between pang and pang. This was the law of things none dreamed to change. A hard, somber heart, a harsh, unsmiling mind, rejected happiness like a cloying sweet. Tranquility was a tedium and ennui. Only by suffering life grew colourful. So this was the nature of this world. Only by suffering life grew colourful. Tranquility was tedious and boring. Happiness was like too sweet and too good. So all of this was rejected. So rejected happiness like a cloying sweet. Tranquility was a tedium and ennui. Only by suffering life grew colourful. It needed the spice of pain, the salt of tears. If one could cease to be, all would be well. Else only fierce sensations gave some zest. The fury of jealousy burning the gnawed heart. The sting of murderous spite and hate and lust. All these emotions that come in us come from these planes. So be careful, don't harbor them in us. For us, what is the learning here? The learning here is to become conscious of where these emotions come from in us. Because we too harbor these, we can harbor these sons of darkness in our own consciousness. While this is the plane, this plane has its counterpart or its influence on us as human beings and in the human world. So, in the collective human world, you see how the collective herds behave. You see what's happening around you. Now you know where it's operating from. What is happening in Ukraine? What is happening in Iran? What is happening in Iraq or in Gaza or whatever? These forces have completely possessed those places and those people. And they are operating, they're like puppets, the human beings there. So, this pain and suffering, when people start taking pleasure in it, that is the realm that it is coming from. When in our human domain, on a day-to-day basis, you are governed by jealousy and spite and hate and lust, you are again open to these sons of darkness. And this is the realm that is influencing you. The more you become conscious of that, the moment these emotions come into your being, you can reject them and throw them out. But remember, every time one tries to become conscious, you become also more subject to them in the sense that they know that you're becoming conscious. So the attack becomes fiercer. But if you persist, they go away. So only by suffering, life grew colorful. And you can see, you read the news, you see every part of the world, you can sense it. That look at the way, I can see this happening in the world, this is not something happening in heaven. Only by suffering, life grew colorful. It needed the spice of pain, the salt of tears. If one could cease to be, all would be well. Else only fierce sensations gave some zest. A fury of jealousy, burning the gnawed heart. The sting of murderous spite and hate and lust. The whisper that lures to the pit and treachery's stroke through vivid spots on the dull, aching hours. To watch the drama of infelicity, the writhing of creatures under the harrow of doom, and sorrow's tragic gaze into the night, and horror and the hammering heart of fear were the ingredients in time's heavy cup that pleased and helped to enjoy its bitter taste. Of such fierce stuff was made up life's long hell. These were the threads of the dark spider's web. So, life's long, you remember the total canto that we are reading, the canto on the kingdoms and godheads of life. Greater life, little life, descent into night, all of this. So this is also realm in life. That's where the word life there is. No, it's not mind, it's life. So, that pleased and helped to enjoy its bitter taste. Of such fierce stuff was made up life's long hell. These were the threads of the dark spider's web. Even now we have a dark spider's web we talk about on the internet, no? What is it called? Dark web.
Dark web.
What does it mean now in our normal
It means it's
dark web?
It's something that you are not seeing it directly. It's something which is hidden.
Hidden, dark web.
Out of the
Public.
It's crimes.
Yeah, so here
Like
this
the
is,
underworld of
so this
death.
is the underworld of your life that we are describing here. This is the underbelly of human, that this is the same thing. This is the dark web that is being described here, which influences, comes in and has a power, but is totally hidden, so you don't see them. That's where the world of falsehood, the sons of darkness. And look at the name of this canto. It's quite amazing how he's written it. The world of falsehood, the mother of evil, and the sons of darkness. So he's got everything there. So, this was religion, this was nature's rule. In a fell chapel of iniquity, to worship a black, pitiless image of power, kneeling one must cross hard-hearted, stony courts, a pavement like a floor of evil fate. Each stone was a keen edge of ruthless force and glued with the chilled blood from tortured breasts. Oh my God. The dry, gnarled trees stood up like dying men, stiffened into a pose of agony. And from each window peered an ominous priest, chanting Tidims, Tidums, Tidums. Have you heard of this? Tidims, Tidums, Tidums. There's a very famous Tidum, Tidum, Tidum. No, this is the one,
The
Tidums.
church,
Yeah, this is the oral church thing. And how he's used the church, completely the church phraseology here. I don't know how he's done it, but anyway, this is Sri Aurobindo writing. So you see, the dry gnarled trees stood up like dying men, stiffened into a pose of agony, and from each window peered an ominous priest. What was it, priest chanting? Tidums for slaughter's crowning grace. Uprooted cities, blasted human homes, burned writhen bodies, the bombshells massacre.
Giving me chills.
Oh God. Our enemies are fallen, they sang. This is the Tidum. Our enemies are fallen, they sang.
T.S. Eliot, there is a-
Sorry?
T.S. Eliot, there is a, and that has the same.
Yeah, same. Our enemies are fallen, they sang. All who once stayed our will are smitten and dead. How great we are, how merciful art thou. Well, I don't know. It must be during the, the Jewish Second World War. And he was writing, this was going on. Thus thought they to reach God's impassive throne. So these fallen priests, these priests that were so crooked and so perverse, our enemies are fallen, they sang. All who once stayed our will are smitten and dead. How great we are, how merciful art thou. Thus thought they to reach God's impassive throne, and him command whom all their acts opposed, magnifying their deeds to touch his skies, and make him an accomplice of their crimes. There no relenting pity could have place, but ruthless strength and iron moods at sway. So, if you see what happened during the Holocaust and during the Second World War with Hitler and his army, it really is kind of a manifestation on earth of the sons of darkness, the mother of evil, and the world of falsehood that had really shadowed the entire earth. To kill 6 million human beings in cold blood is not easy, And that is what happened during that time. So these powers keep going. Even now they are trying. You see what's happening in different parts of the world, and the crime, the slaughter, the misery, the pain, the starvation that is going on. It's so inhuman that it cannot. How are we tolerating it? And yet it's going on. So this is how it is. The whole world stood quiet while this was happening in the when was the Holocaust exactly? 1938, 39, yeah. 38, 39, 40. Stopped in 41. So, for years, before 5, 6 years it took place. So how great we are, okay. There no relenting pity could have place, but ruthless strength and iron moods at sway, a dateless sovereignty of terror and gloom. This took the figure of a darkened God, revered by the racked wretchedness he had made, who held in thrall a miserable world. But remember, here, this is a description of this world that Ashwapati has gone into. This is the prototype, or this is the original world in the subtle planes of consciousness of the world of falsehood. This world of falsehood exists even today. And all these great evil powers are sitting there. It's not something that is finished in the 1930s or whatever. So he's not talking about an event in history. He's talking about a typal plane. And it's very important to understand that. Only for our own mental understanding we can correlate it to human events. But this plane exists.
Still influencing
It's influencing you also.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of us. So why? Why? Because it's a typal plane. And here he's talking about the traveler of the worlds. What is the name of the whole canto? The kingdoms and godheads of the greater life. Then he'll talk about, so the canto is the book of the traveler of the worlds. What worlds? Not just the physical worlds. He's talking about the subtle worlds. And everything on earth comes from those subtle worlds. So this is the subtle world of falsehood and the darkness and evil. So this world exists, and I don't know if it will ever not exist. We don't
You
know.
said the other day small thought of violence or hate or anger,
Yes,
everything
yes, comes from.
there
So you have to know where it's coming from. Then you don't ascribe it to yourself and you can reject it. If you think it's you and it's yours and you own it, then you can't, you find it more difficult to throw it out. When you realize that it comes from these planes of darkness, then it's easier for you to throw it out and say, I refuse to give place in my thought and my consciousness of these kinds of emotions or thoughts or ideas or actions. So, let's continue now. This took the figure of a darkened god, revered by the racked wretchedness he had made, who held in thrall a miserable world, and helpless hearts, nailed to unceasing woe, adored the feet that trampled them into mire. It was a world of sorrow and of hate, sorrow with hatred for its lonely joy, hatred with others' sorrow as its feast. A bitter rictus curled the suffering mouth, a tragic cruelty saw its ominous chance. So it was a world of sorrow and of hate, sorrow with hatred for its lonely joy, hatred with others' sorrow as its feast. A bitter rictus curled the suffering mouth, a tragic cruelty saw its ominous chance. Hate was the black archangel of that realm. So who was the archangel of that realm? Hate. It glowed, a somber jewel in the heart. Hate glowed like a somber jewel in the heart, burning the soul with its malignant rays, and swallowed in its fell abysm of might. So this emotion, this passion of hate, which sometimes even drives human beings and comes even to all of us, is something very, very, very dire. You know, that's why they say that you have to, what is the cause of disease? What is the cause of, ill health in the human world? You will always come back to these emotions again. Hate, resentment, jealousy, anger. So these cause a terrible imbalance in the physical body of us. And this is what causes disease, not all the things that the doctors tell you. So, and this is where they come from, this realm of falsehood. So that's why when you read this, you can understand how important it is to always have goodwill. Let other people hate you. Don't hate back. Let other people do whatever they wish to do. Keep an inner sense of goodwill in your heart, and you will never fall ill. There's a very, very important thing that even the mother used to talk about, the importance of goodwill. So, goodwill comes from a higher source. If you can turn hatred, if you have nothing in you that responds to hatred, then hatred cannot enter you. And therefore, it bounces back right into that person. It goes right back to that person. That person suffers, not you. But if you allow it to enter you and fester and blame, this blame game, this complaining, all these things, and the smallest things, these are all things we have to be very conscious of. They will pull us down. Right, Anuradha? So, this realm he's talking about. Hatred with others' sorrow as its feast, a bitter rictus curled the suffering mouth, a tragic cruelty saw its ominous chance. Hate was the black archangel of that realm. It glowed, a somber jewel, in the heart, burning the soul with its malignant rays, and wallowed in its fell abysm of might. These passions even objects seemed to exude, for mind overflowed into the inanimate, that answered with the wickedness it received. Against their users, used malignant powers. So these passions, even objects seem to exude, for mind overflowed into the inanimate, that answered with the wickedness it received. Against their users and malignant powers, hurt without hands, and strangely, suddenly slew, appointed as instruments of an unseen doom. Or they made themselves a fateful prison wall, where men condemned wake through the creeping hours, counted by the toilings of an ominous bell. An evil environment worsened evil souls. All things were conscious in this plane, and all perverse. In this infernal realm, he, Ashwapati, dared to press even into its deepest pit and darkest core, perturbed its tenebrous base, dared to contest its ancient privileged right and absolute force. So perturbed its who perturbed its tenebrous breast? Ashwapati base, and dared to contest its ancient privileged right and absolute force. In night he plunged to know her dreadful heart. So Ashwapati plunged into this night to understand and to know her heart. What is the heart and the core and the root of all evil? In hell he sought the root and cause of hell. Its anguished gulfs opened in his own breast. He listened to the clamors of its crowded pain, the heartbeats of its fatal loneliness. Above was a chill deaf eternity. In vague tremendous passages of doom, he heard the gobbling voice that guides to slay. So now you can see how much Ashwapati and Sri Aurobindo himself, you can see his autobiographical here, how much he had to go into the depths of hell. In hell he sought the root and cause of hell. Its anguished gulfs opened in his own breast, and the pain and suffering he had to bear. He listened to clamors of its crowded pain. That's why there is a line in Savitri, 1,000 wounds was his, wounded something, with exact words, 1,000 wounds was his heart, referring to Ashwapati. So, he listened to clamors of its crowded pain, the heartbeats of its fatal loneliness. Above was a chill deaf eternity, in vague tremendous passages of doom. Try and picturize these words and you will go into them. In vague tremendous passages of doom, he heard the goblin voice that guides to slay, and faced the enchantments of the demon sign, and traversed the ambush of the opponent snake. In menacing tracks, in tortured solitudes, companionless, he roamed through desolate ways, where the red wolf waits by the fordless stream, and death's black eagles scream in the precipice, and met the hounds of Baal who hunt men's hearts, baying across the velds of destiny. So here there are some interesting imagery, which of course I'm sure has its references, where the red wolf waits by the fordless stream. Anyone knows what is this a reference to? So, and the wolf is with a capital W, so you can look it up in that Savitri incarnate word. There is something here I've forgotten myself, but I do remember reading it. Where the red wolf waits by the fordless stream, and death's black eagles scream to the precipice, and met the hounds of Baal who hunt men's hearts, baying across the velds of destiny. In footless battlefields of the abyss, in footless battlefields of the abyss, fought shadowy combats in mute eyeless depths, assaults of hell endured and titan strokes, and bore the fierce inner wounds that are slow to heal. So this is where Ashwapati is now, and he is, of course, companionless, alone, roaming through these desolate ways and bearing. And of course, he has to bear the fierce inner wounds that are slow to heal when he's moving in these paths, because these assaults of hell he has to endure and tighten strokes. It's very difficult even to move in these realms. And death's black eagles scream to the precipice. A prisoner of a hooded magic force, captured and trailed in falsehood's lethal net, and often strangled in the noose of grief, or cast in the grim morass of swallowing doubt, or shut into pits of error and despair. He drank her poison draughts till none was left. Wonderful image of, you can see the Shiva-like quality of Ashwapati here, drinking the poison draughts that none could bear, and going into this realm, and he's had to swallow and go through it. And actually, this is rather autobiographical, because Sri Aurobindo himself went through these realms and has spoken about it in some conversations of his with sadhaks. So, almost difficult to understand by the mind, because so beautifully and poetically expressed. But you can just imagine what somebody in his subtle body, not even with the physical protection of the physical body, is moving in this realm of this kind of description and having to go through it. Very dangerous. So, he drank her, so let's see from here. A prisoner of a hooded magic force, captured and trailed in falsehood's lethal net, and often strangled in the noose of grief, or cast in the grim morass of swallowing doubt, or shut into pits of error and despair. He drank her poison draughts till none was left, in a world where neither hope nor joy could come. The ordeal he suffered of evil's absolute reign, the ordeal he suffered of evil's absolute reign, yet kept intact his spirit's radiant truth, incapable of motion or of force, in matter's blank denial, jailed and blind, pinned to the black inertia of our base, he treasured between his hands his flickering soul. So it's almost like he had to, use his protecting hands to guard and protect his soul. So flickering soul, even his soul, which was so radiant, was flickering in this realm of terrible darkness and evil. He drank her poison, The ordeal he suffered of evil's absolute reign, yet kept intact his spirit's radiant truth, incapable of motion or of force, in matter's blank denial jailed and blind, pinned to the black inertia of our base, he treasured between his hands his flickering soul. His being ventured into mindless void, intolerant gulfs that knew not thought nor sense. Thought ceased, sense failed, his soul still saw and knew. In atomic parcelings of the infinite, near to the dumb beginning of lost self, he felt the curious, small futility of the creation of material things. So this was in atomic parcelings of the infinite, near to the dumb beginnings of lost self. He felt the curious, small futility of the creation of material things. Or, stifled in the inconscious hollow dusk, he sounded the mystery dark and bottomless of the enormous and unmeaning deeps, when struggling life in a dead universe rose. There, in the stark identity, lost by mind, he felt the sealed sense of the insensible world and a mute wisdom in the unknowing night. Into the abysmal secrecy he came, where darkness peers from her mattress, grey and nude, and stood on the last locked subconscious floor, where being slept unconscious of its thoughts. So, there in the stark identity lost by mind, he felt the sealed sense of the insensible world, and he stood into this abysmal secrecy he came. Again, he goes into another level of darkness and abysmal night, where darkness peers from her mattress, grey and nude. The darkness herself peers from her mattress, grey and nude, and stood on the last locked subconscious floor. So, last subconscious floor, where being slept, being with a capital B. So, which being? Where being slept, unconscious of its thoughts, and built the world, not knowing what it built. There, waiting its hour, the future lay unknown. There is the record of the vanished stars. Interesting line. There is the record of the vanished stars, those stars that have vanished. So it's in that absolute subconscious crypt at the last door, last level, and built the world not knowing, where being slept unconscious of its thoughts. Being did not know itself and built the world not knowing what it built. There waiting its hour, the future lay unknown. There is the record of the vanished stars. There in the slumber of the cosmic will, he saw the secret key of nature's change. And it is here that he sees, in the last subconscious floor, the last door and level, that he sees there in the slumber of the cosmic will, he saw the secret key of nature's change. A light was with him, an invisible hand was laid upon the error and the pain, till it became a quivering ecstasy, the shock of sweetness of an arm's embrace. He saw in night the eternal shadowy veil. So what did Ashwapati see? In the deepest darkness, in the deepest night, in the subconscious, where there was nothing but darkness itself peering out, he saw in night the eternal shadowy veil. The veil, it was like almost the eternal veiled. He saw that there was actually, the night was the eternal veiled. So this secret Ashwapati gained when he went right to the bottomless pit. And actually it is this that then he uses, and that's how he, in Sri Aurobindo in his own yoga, was able to say that everything can be transformed, that there is an evolution and an involution, and so on and so forth. His whole yoga, the integral yoga, was formulated, and he could understand, because he could understand the meaning and the origin of the world and of all creation. So, there is the record of the vanished stars. There in the slumber of the cosmic will, he saw the secret key of nature's change. A light was with him, an invisible hand was laid upon the error and the pain, till it became a quivering ecstasy, the shock of sweetness of an arm's embrace. He saw in night the eternal shadowy veil, knew death for a seller of the house of life. So death as a seller, what is a seller? Knew death for a seller of the house of life, the basement. Normally is where the cellar is. Knew death for a seller of the house of life. In destruction felt creation's hasty pace. knew loss as the price of a celestial gain, and hell as a shortcut to heaven's gates. What is that famous line in Savitri? None can go through heaven unless they pass through hell. So here again, knew loss as the price of a celestial gain, in destruction felt creation's hasty pace, knew loss as the price of a celestial gain, and hell as a shortcut to heaven's gates. Then in illusion's occult factory, and in the inconscient's magic printing house, illusion's occult factory, and so what is this illusion he's talking about? What we call as Maya. Then in illusion's occult factory, and in the inconscient's magic printing house, torn were the formats of the primal night, and shattered the stereotypes of ignorance. Alive, breathing, a deep spiritual breath, nature expunged her stiff mechanical code, and the articles of the bound soul's contract. Falsehood gave back to truth her tortured shape. And this is the wonder of Savitri, that even when describing such a terrible, terrible realm and such darknesses that one is almost losing hope while reading it, there in the magic darkness he sees the key. And that is why there is always hope, and that is why that there is a beautiful creation, and there is an evolution, because there is the involution, and this is the involution of the divine in darkness, in falsehood, in night, in the inconscient, that is sleeping there, that Ashwapati finds is the key to creation's mystery and the way forward. And therefore he finds that the next step of evolution, and he discovers the supramental and the superconscious force that is hidden within, and that mind itself is actually a subsidiary power of a greater power that actually is unfolding in this night, which is the supramental. Okay, so alive, breathing a deep spiritual breath, nature expunged her stiff mechanical code, and the articles of bound soul's contract. Falsehood gave back to truth her tortured shape. Annulled were the tables of the law of pain. So this is it. When you come to this kind of discovery and the magic key, annulled were the tables of the law of pain, then he discovers actually behind pain and evil and behind night is actually the supernal light, bliss, delight. And therefore, he could, the famous Vedic Sarvamidam Brahman, and that everything is in the end bliss and delight, and there is nothing else but that. Now, these seem to be very specious words, but there is a deeper, the reason that one could say all this is because of this knowledge that is there in those who are able to go into these planes and do yoga. So, falsehood gave back to truth her tortured shape, annulled were the tables of the law of pain, and in their place grew luminous characters. The skillful penman's unseen finger wrote his swift, intuitive calligraphy. So, and in their place grew luminous characters. Instead of what? The tables of the law of pain, the skillful penman's unseen finger wrote his swift, intuitive calligraphy. Earth's forms were made his divine documents. The wisdom embodied mind could not reveal. In conscience chased from the world's voiceless breast, transfigured with the fixed schemes of reasoning thought, arousing consciousness in things inert, he imposed upon dark atom and dumb mass the diamond script of the imperishable. inscribed on the dim heart of fallen things, a paean song of the free infinite, and the name foundation of eternity, and traced on the awake exultant cells in the ideographs of the ineffable, the lyric of the love that waits through time, and the mystic volume of the Book of Bliss. Just the mystic volume of the Book of Bliss. Now, this is such a dense formation of words that have meaning so deep and so immense that, one would do well to read this a couple of times so that the mind and the brain and the cells begin to glimmer some sort of meaning from what he's saying. So, what did he see? Falsehood gave back to truth her tortured shape. Annulled were the tables of the law of pain, and in their place grew luminous characters. The skillful penman's unseen finger wrote his swift, intuitive calligraphy. So here, skillful penman's unseen finger is a reference to who? Earth's forms, obviously the Supreme. So the skillful penman's unseen finger wrote his swift, intuitive calligraphy. Earth's forms were made his divine documents. Earth's forms were made his divine documents. The wisdom embodied mind could not reveal, in conscience chased from the world's voiceless breast. So this wisdom that embodied mind could not reveal, in conscience chased from the world's voiceless breast, transfigured with the fixed schemes of reasoning thought, arousing consciousness in things inert. He imposed upon dark atom and dumb mask the diamond script of the imperishable, inscribed on the dim heart of fallen things, a paean song of the free infinite, and the name, foundation of eternity, and traced on the awake, exultant cells in the ideographs of the ineffable, the lyric of the love that waits through time, and the mystic volume of the Book of Bliss, and the message of the superconscient fire. So this message of the superconscient fire. Then life beat pure in the corporeal frame. Then life beat pure in the corporeal frame. The infernal gleam died and could slay no more. Hell split across its huge abrupt facade as if a magic building were undone. Night opened and vanished like a gulf of dream into being's gap, scooped out as empty space, in which she had filled the place of absent God. There poured a wide, intimate, and blissful dawn. Healed were all things that time's torn heart had made. Healed were all things that time's torn heart had made, and sorrow could live no more in nature's breast. Division ceased to be, for God was there. The soul lit the conscious body with its ray. Matter and spirit mingled and were one. End of Canto 8. So, a very, very beautiful end, very luminous, very suggestive of, and very revealing of the true nature and purpose of night, the true nature and purpose of darkness and evil. So, who are these? If you look at it, if you are, who are these? This world of falsehood, mother of evil, and the sons of darkness. They are all agents of the imperishable to do his work in um, in pushing forward the evolution of the earth and of all creation. Of course, um, man is the is said to be the pinnacle of the evolutionary head of all other sentient and insentient beings. But as Sri Aurobindo has pointed out, that man is considered superior because of mind, and but mind itself is so deeply delved in division and ignorance that, having lost some of the purity of the instinct and of the pure vital, in a sense there is also a deeper and bigger, larger chasm or degradation which needs to be bridged by the supermind. So this is where Sri Aurobindo comes across and realizes what falsehood is. Falsehood is actually a truth, is actually a tortured shape of truth. What wisdom is, what is you know, transfigured with the fixed schemes of reasoning thought. So if you notice, all through, and the name foundation of eternity entraced on the awake exultant cells. What is the ideographs of the ineffable? Ideograph? What is the meaning of ideograph? Those characters. Entire thing, yeah. So here in this sense, the diamond script of the imperishable inscribed on the dim heart of fallen things, a paean song of the free infinite, and the name, foundation of eternity, and traced on the awake exultant cells in the ideographs of the ineffable, in the cells of the body of the earth, of the body of the universe, of the inconscient, is within the coded within the cells is the ideographs of the ineffable, or the foundations of eternity, or the paean song of the free infinite. And then the lyric of the love that waits through time, and the mystic volume of the book of bliss. Mystic volume of the book of bliss. This is what he finds in the darkest, deepest night. The mystic volume of the book of bliss. And the message of the superconscient fire, which is a reference to the supramental force. So then life beats pure in the corporeal frame. Then what happens? Life beats pure in the corporeal frame, the body, the physical, material frame. The infernal gleam died and could slay no more. And the infernal gleam of darkness and evil died and could not slay any more, did not hold, did not have its sovereignty anymore. Hell split across its huge abrupt facade, as if a magic building were undone. Suddenly, hell itself split and disappeared, as though a magic building that was full of hell and darkness and evil suddenly was undone and disappeared. So can you imagine a whole foundation of hell suddenly disappeared when this happens? So then life beat pure in the corporeal frame, the infernal gleam died and could slay no more, hell split across its huge abrupt facade, as if a magic building were undone. Night itself opened up and vanished like a gulf of dream. And what took place? What came in place of night that disappeared and vanished like a gulf of dream? Into being's gap scooped out as empty space, in which she had filled the place of absent God. There poured a wide, intimate, and blissful dawn. So instead of night that disappeared, a wide and, intimate, wide, intimate, and blissful dawn came in. Healed were all things that time's torn heart had made, and sorrow could live no more. In nature's breast, please note, in nature's breast. So all sorrow disappeared from nature, that is, from the earth, from the universe. All sorrow could live no more in nature's breast. Division ceased to be. There was no more division. No more one. There was no more this me and you as separate, in the sense of the ego. Division ceased to be, for God was there. The soul lit the conscious body with its ray. Matter and spirit mingled and were one. So, matter and spirit mingled and were one. So, this is how this canto ends. And then the next canto, Canto 9, is the paradise of the life gods.